Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Afternoon Coffee with Legrand. Our topic today is IT management of OT sensors. My name is Mark Cram. I'm the Director of New Market Development for Legrand's Data Power and Control Division. And I am joined today by the land down under and the great UK. From the land down under, I'm joined by Clinton Marshall, who is our Director of Solutions and Channel Development for Asia Pac. Clinton, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you, everyone. Yes, I'm currently in Australia, so that's why I'm upside down right now, but I think I can go back to normal. So I've been with Legrand for 17 years, but prior to being under the Legrand brand, I was with Raritan, and I'm actually based out of Singapore, but with the current climate, I relocated back home to Melbourne, Australia, and it's kind of been nice to come home, but it does make it a bit of a strange time of the day for me.
Fantastic. Yeah, you're in the land of tomorrow.
Yeah, well, look, coming from the future, you can't beat that, really.
Understand? Yes, you get the good news ahead of us every day, don't you?
Yes.
Very good. And we'll pass the torch. We are also introducing today Rizwan Raja. He comes to us from the UK. He is our lead technical solutions and support engineer based there in the UK. Riz, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your experience?
Hey guys, I'm Riz. I'm based in the UK. I cover the pre and post-sale engagements from a technical perspective for the UK, Ireland, Nordic, and the Baltic region. So basically, the whole of Northwestern Europe. I've been with Raritan and Legrand for just over 5 years now. And before that, I come from a financial services and telecommunications background.
Very good. Well, it sounds like we've got a diversity of backgrounds and a lot of knowledge on the call here today. I come from an automotive electronics and semiconductor background, having joined Server Technology, a brand of Legrand, a little over 11 years ago now. So I think at this point we're well represented with skills and understanding of the power and overall telecom industries. Wanted to toss out a first question. Today we are focusing around IT management of OT sensors. So the first question we had today that we wanted to get Clinton to answer for us was what are OT sensors?
That's a good question, and I think most of us are probably coming from an IT background. Maybe we've been working within the data center industry, which is where a lot of our customers that we work with are generally IT managers, facility managers, data center managers. But there's operations managers, but I guess operational technology that the operation managers tend to be responsible for are moving into more of the IT space. So operational technology sensors are typically found in locations that have not had IT devices traditionally. For example, in the telecommunications industry, where you've got radar systems, TV, radio transmission, broadcast towers, telephone and cable exchanges, or essential service industries, say like the process control environments or water treatment facilities or power plants. These sorts of environments have typically had operational technology and sensors to detect change and the like in those areas. So operational technology sensors are typically connected to equipment that is now considered legacy. Those sensors are either connected to devices that are going end of life, or even the network that they're connecting to are going end of life. So to give you an example of some of the areas that the operational technology sensors reside in, there's a series of different locations such as cell towers, as an example. And cell towers have typically been a very radio-centric type environment with antennas and cables and associated sensors to sense change or events within these environments. And these sensors are now becoming more of the responsibility of the IT manager. Now, some of these types of systems or operational technologies are becoming quite defunct. In this picture, there's a picture of a PLC control system that's then connected to an old school copper wire network. And in this particular customer example that I worked with, their plain old telephone system was becoming end of life, and that's essentially where they were getting their sensor data from, was over an old copper wire network, which was becoming redundant.
Very interesting. Okay, so would that be like a SCADA platform, something that's the supervisory control and data acquisitions networks?
Yeah, correct. And I think that there's different areas of a organization's network that will still have need for those types of things, but for edge locations, for these disparate deployment of infrastructure, IT seems to be coming into these spaces. So if it didn't look like a data center 10 years ago, it's starting to look something like a data center or an edge type application, an edge type setup.
Okay, very good. And so in that circumstance, you're saying that some of the hardware that is now being deployed resembles what you used to find in a data center. Is that also correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So meaning that the sensors that are deployed in these locations are similar, if not identical, to what are being deployed in the data center.
Okay, very good. All right, well, that leads up to our next question that I wanted to toss Riz's way, and wanted to try to get a feel from Riz, in your perspective, why are these OT sensors suddenly coming under the purview of the IT management team?
Sure. So if we just look at the technology landscape around the world and in different industry verticals today, we see that delivery drivers, for example, are able to get automated route updates if there's an incident or a jam on their normal route, and that usually happens within 10 to 15 minutes of an event occurring. You compare that to the intelligence that the IT teams have with regards to the systems that they manage, the components. They still don't know what components are about to fail. So that disparity in itself has prompted the IT teams to look at what advancements can be made in the monitoring space and how it will improve their overall operations as well as the business value. So, the general concept of monitoring today is understood, and anyone with a fitness tracker, a home thermostat, CCTV has first-hand experience of how advances in IT have improved people's lives. Users benefit from immediate knowledge and information from their devices, but most IT teams haven't been benefiting from big analytics or machine learning. So the monitoring in IT has long been reactionary, and in the ever-changing world of the edge, where there are more and more disparate locations, and in almost all circumstances, they're lights out unmanned locations, the struggle is compounded. It's not practical to staff each of those locations in the edge with trained personnel. Therefore, the need arises to overlay what OT sensors you have in that space already with IT. So, as we said, many of those sites are unmanned. You do as much as possible to keep those systems up and running, whilst buying time to arrange a service call to send someone out. So that overlay gives you the ability to diagnose a problem, be able to either reset the equipment, change some of the configuration or the operating parameters to extend the runtime or the lifespan of those systems. So there's immense value in today's world to have that remote monitoring capability and actuating those OT sensors with the AI overlay effectively to keep things coordinated and running. So ultimately, that's why the lines between IT and OT teams are blurring, and the IT teams are taking ownership of those IT systems.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, very good. And for our third question today, Clinton, I wanted to ask you, so how has Legrand solved the challenge by integrating that OT sensor input into our modern data center management type platforms?
So I think a good way to answer that would be to, I guess, talk from experience. And we have a customer that, funnily enough, just happened to walk into a coffee meeting, and he was the operations manager for a cellular company. And he was just looking at what I had brought with me, which was a couple of sensors. And in this sort of very ad hoc meeting, we got just talking about what he was responsible for. And I guess I had some general questions about how a cellular company was dealing with, planning for 5G and some of the challenges that they may have faced. And it turned out that they had an issue with being able to monitor battery runtime, any faults in any of the batteries that are placed out at their cell tower locations, which were some of the pictures you saw earlier. And these and what we ended up finding just by fluke was that the products that I had brought with me from another customer POC that we were doing actually was so interesting to this operations manager that he wanted to take them from me and put them in front of his team to say, hey, look at this stuff. And it was essentially one of our controllers and a handful of sensors that could have been or could be a potential replacement for their failing PLC control systems that had been in place for about 20, 30 years. And what it turned out to be was that our platform that is typically being deployed in and around the data center and IT environments was now becoming suitable, or could be suitable, for some of these cell tower or edge locations. So from there, the customer embarked on doing a POC, and they used nearly all of our sensors and our controller that runs a platform called Xerus. And Xerus is the same platform that runs on our other products found in the data center. And it's turned into quite a unique solution for the customer, because they've been able to integrate it with not only their equipment on site, they've been able to integrate these devices to their existing management systems back in their enterprise. So that's like integrating it to Splunk, and also into Microsoft Power BI. And these are tools that are quite modern, that really didn't have a way of communicating with these operational technology sensors of years gone by, because they weren't on an IT network. So I think with the product that we have called the SRC, this is one way that Legrand helped to solve some of the problems of this customer that we met with. Yeah, thanks, Riz.
Yeah, there you go. Little visual aid there. Good stuff. Okay, so you were able to take that SRC then into a customer installation and begin integrating sensors and collecting data, and then putting that out onto their network, so that their NOC presumably could then begin looking at what's going on in the field.
Yeah, that's right. They had a NOC, and the NOC would receive kind of like a telephone call when events would happen out in the field. And it would go via their plain old telephone system network. And that was monitored by a 24/7 operation center. This is for an entire country's cellular network, and now that they've been able to trial this new technology, they've found that, well, one, they don't need to have, it is connecting to an IT network, which is either via a cellular 4G, 3G or 4G data connection at the moment, or it's connected via the backhaul networks, which are, something that wasn't, typically intended for a data network, when GSM and 2G networks were being rolled out all those years ago. But with this device, they've been able to connect it to an IT network. And of course, with, as with our other tools in the data center, we're building these devices with one secure platform to provide a common set of security policies, security protocols, and common, configuration items across, the enterprise that can now extend out to these edge locations or cell tower locations in this example.
Very good. Well, that makes perfect sense. So I'm going to direct a question Riz's way and try to get a feel for you from you, Riz. How are customers using the data that they're able to collect from this SRC? For example, I see that we've got a variety of sensors, temperature, humidity, and so on. What kind of data is coming out of the SRC, and how are they collecting it, and what are they doing with it? We're not getting audio from you, Riz.
Oh, is that better?
That's better.
Sorry about that. Okay, so the SRC in itself, the Smart Rack Controller, comes in a variety of different models for different environments. We've got an AC version, a neg 48-volt DC version. The unit in itself is just a 1U device, and it integrates a plethora of different sensors. So environmental sensors, security sensors, but specifically for the OT use cases, we've got contact closure sensors, dry contact sensors, and power dry contact sensors, which are effectively just signaling sensors. So if we consider the use case of utilizing events and alerts, the SRC in the Xerus firmware effectively enables you to create a what-if analysis on any of the connected sensor data. So if you can see from the slide Clinton's sharing there, you've got temperature, humidity sensors, you've got powered actuators and that kind of thing. So if you consider temperature, for example, you can derive, you can effectively generate alerts to say, if the temperature exceeds X, do Y, Z actions. So stipulating the alerts, defining the delivery mechanism, and what effectively you want to do with it. So for example, if we take another concept of a fan controller, a customer might want to get alerted of a maintenance activity to clean out a fan filter, for example. So we'd integrate our sensors, which would then alert between the delta of fan speed versus temperature in a location, and then determine that the airflow, for example, had been impeded. So it highlights the need to, that effective event would highlight the need to arrange a service call or a maintenance call with an engineer. So keeping that system running without impacting the environment, so you could effectively issue a configuration change to that fan controller to increase the speed, for example, to buy you some time, and also mitigate the impact of that blockage. And then also if there's any kind of a logic that you can think of that isn't available as a configuration item in the UI, it's not a foregone conclusion. We've got Lua scripting for that, and that enables you to basically script whatever type of logic you can think of. So for example, if you're talking about comparing data from 2 or more sensors and then derive a benefit from that, you literally just write up a script, or engage us, we'll write one for you, upload it to the controller, and you get an alert based on the results of that script. And an example, I guess, would be define a script to define when your power supply of a server that you might be managing is about to fail. It requires the power factor plus the active power to determine the telltale signs of when the quality of the power supply is about to deteriorate. So, centralizing alerts and events into a single pane of glass using configuration changes to elongate the service of whatever systems that you are managing and running to basically better manage those lights out locations.
Oh, very good. And so does someone have to know SNMP in gory detail to get to all this, or are there other tools available that will collect the sensor data and build that picture for the customer?
So we've, in terms of our own sensors, they're all plug and play. If you're wanting to look at it from just a single controller perspective or less than 20, you can effectively just utilize the existing controllers. As soon as you plug them into our firmware stack, effectively the SRC, you tend to get readings right away. If you've got hundreds of locations, it makes sense to overlay it further by an SNMP management software. We partner with Sunbird's Power IQ, for example, and those guys have a combined roadmap with us. They support any kind of new features that we bring out on their roadmap. But essentially, most of the famous SNMP management softwares out there on the market today have a Raritan plugin. And we provide professional services. So if there is anything that's not readily integrated, we're able to provide that through services.
Oh, very good. And a lot of the telcos today, I think, are pursuing open related technologies, open RAN and so forth. Do we have an API available that helps customers get data and be able to do with it what they want?
Yeah, we've got a JSON API, and that basically enables you to actuate controls or get data from any data point that's available in the UI effectively. So anything that's available from a reading perspective or a sensor that can be controlled can also be coded to actuate through the firmware.
Very good. Okay. So let's see. I'm looking on the question board here to see if we've gotten any questions from the field yet. We have not. So I've got another question I want to toss out for Clinton at this point. Let's see. So Clinton, does Xerus apply to any other platforms beyond the SRC?
Yes, Xerus is started around nearly 10 years ago, and started off with our intelligent, or what I now call programmable rack PDUs, because the platform has now got itself to such a state that you can really do a lot with this firmware or platform. So yeah, it started off on our rack power distribution units, and it's now spread into our smart rack controllers, or SRC. It's been on our rack transfer switches. It's been on our inline meters, and we're even starting to see it slightly touch our other remote access and control tools in our KVM switch range as well. So, Xerus is really, I think, a great way for an organization to standardize on a management platform in the field that can talk a lot of the modern secure protocols, and it's really I've seen it grow from version 1 to what it is now, 3.6 something, and it's regularly updated, and it's constantly improved with customer feedback. So the example I touched on earlier with the battery monitoring, and with Riz's customer, we're using the smart lock handles with the keypads. This is all driven by customer request, and the platform's been able to evolve as the customers needs are changing. So yeah, it's great. I really, I'm always looking out for the latest build from our dev team and trying to see what's new, and it's great.
Very cool. All right. Well, that makes perfect sense, and it sounds to me like you kind of take the time to learn it once, and it's going to take you into various aspects of the business. So what I hear you saying is right now you've got our IT infrastructure, somebody that's got a data center can have our PDUs in rack and a bunch of sensors hanging off of that. And then somebody that's trying to go overlay existing infrastructure out in the field can go deploy an SRC and integrate support for a variety of sensors and interfaces and pull data off of that as well. So it sounds to me like you got a chance for both to interplay.
I think the one way to look at it is if you've got IT managers that are now being asked to look after equipment and having to plan for rollouts or adding on additional things to their IT networks that are out on the edge, the Xerus platform is really going to be hopefully a sigh of relief, because they will already know what it is and what it does if they've been using it within their data center environments.
Very cool. All right, so I've got a question here. It says, have you integrated to Tritium Niagara? I'm not familiar with that. Any of you guys up on that one?
I'll come across Niagara now.
No.
Okay, very good. All right, well, let's see what else we've got here in the questions. Rare and KVMs are legendary. All right. Interested about power cycling.
With the integration aspect, I know there's this open source one called Zabbix, and then there's Nagios. And I actually deployed Zabbix only 2 weeks ago while working from home, and integrating that with essentially a brand new monitoring system was pretty straightforward. And there's quite a heavy following or community which somebody posted a plugin for our Xerus platform in the Zabbix, I guess, community thing. So I'm not sure if this Tritium thing has a similar following, but it might be worth seeing if there is a plugin available through some community forum, maybe. I'm not sure, but I just, speaking to ease of integration, it was pretty straightforward to integrate it to Zabbix.
Yeah, I mean, if you need any assistance, you can always engage us through tech support. So, tech@raritan.com, for example. Literally all you need is a MIB browser to be able to just pull the OIDs of the specific metering points that you want to pull. So feel free to engage us if you have issues locating that.
Fantastic. And so I think in summary then, I've seen up on the screen, we've got smart door locks, we've got temperature and humidity, we've got air pressure differential, we've got air velocity measurement, I believe. What are some of the other, we've got dry contact closure. What are some of the other sensor types that we've got in right now and on the roadmap that you guys could talk about in our last 2 minutes?
Not sure we can talk about roadmap stuff too much, or if at all, on this platform. Come on, Mark.
All right.
When you look at these sensors here, this is a multi-function sensor, taking inputs and outputs with temperature and humidity sensors, being able to connect them together. Taking alarms from, in this example, was to try to help the customer I referenced to take the outputs and inputs from the PLC control and be able to bring it into a sensor. And the other sensors, maybe not these types of sensors, but it may be integrating other objects such as sirens and alarms. We have kind of a multi-in, multi-out type platform.
Very good.
And yeah, it's and one thing that's really not looked at a lot is the API. So I think if you get your own internal people to, if a customer was to get their own internal people to look at the capability of this thing, they may find that they could solve many problems with a single device that is built with resiliency built in.
Very good. I think we could go on for hours, but I think our time is up for this afternoon. I really appreciate you gentlemen being able to join me today for coffee and sharing a little bit about what we've seen with respect to IT management of OT sensors. Riz and Clinton, it's been a pleasure and a privilege here this afternoon. For those of you still listening in, we thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you have a terrific afternoon.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
You're very welcome. Thanks. Cheers all.